Good morning. I'm going to change the oil in my 2007 Dyna Street Bob. This is my lovely little motorcycle garage. I bought a motorcycle jack that doesn't fit underneath my motorcycle, so I have to create a ramp to get the bike up high enough to put it on the lift. And I'm all ready to drain my oil, and I got my rags, and I got my handy dandy oil filter and oil change. Okay, this is the first time I've tied this bike down, so what I did was I came around here and across the cross member on the frame instead of coming up over the neck, because these wires are here and I don't want to put any pressure on those or do anything with that. So we're going to, we discovered that this is a, I think this is a 16 millimeter bolt, interestingly enough. So we're going to get that up in there. Holy crap, and loose it comes. Okay, so what I found is that with the socket and the ratchet up in here, there wasn't really enough clearance to back the bolt out without hitting the frame piece, so I'm resorting to a 6 millimeter Allen wrench to finish the job. Yay, we have oil. Looks pretty good, not too bad. Little bit of a metal on there, but probably nothing to be a little piece of O-ring. Certainly I've seen more metal than that before in there, so I'm gonna call that happy. Okay, so as this is draining, I want to point out a couple of things real quick here. You can see this bolt over here. Now this is a 2008 Dyna Street Bob, and this is your transmission fluid. I'm not going to change my transmission fluid today for a lot of reasons, but it doesn't need to be changed. This, of course, we found out is our oil plug, and that used a 16 millimeter socket to break it loose, and then I went ahead and used I believe this is a 6 millimeter. And this little booger up here is, don't mess with that. That is for, it's where they have to drill a hole for the passage for the oil to, it's actually where the oil comes out of the oil pan and goes up into the bottom of the case. But, so to do the machining on it, you know, they had to have a through point to drill the second half of that passageway. So that's just a plug for that. And it's factory installed, it's factory Loctited. I read a couple of posts online about if you jack with it, you're gonna screw things up, so don't mess with that one. It's always a good idea while you're down here to just kind of take a look at everything and just kind of look around at your stuff and see what it looks like from the bottom. Particularly, I have lowered this, had this motorcycle lowered, so it likes to drag on stuff every night. I always want to make sure I'm taking good care, and the zen of motorcycle maintenance and all that. Very important stuff. Okay, I'm gonna, takes us a minute to get moved around in our little bitty garage here, but I'm gonna just crank it over a couple of times. Don't let it start, there's no oil in it, but just crank it a couple of times to let the oil come out. So that's what I'm gonna do now. So I've already loosened the filter. I've never found an easy way to do this without making a mess. I'm sure somebody will leave me lots of wonderful comments about how to do it without making a mess, but just get a good look at that. And it makes a mess. all down the front of the case, so I cleverly position my oil pan below it and try to do my best not to get oil all over the place. But we'll take some gunk and spray that on there at the car wash and fix that all. Alright, so now I'm ready to put the oil filter back on. I like the nut on the end. Much easier to get it off and put it on. Chrome works the same as black. I always put a little bit of oil around that gasket to help it seat. Alright, so I just wanted to show you the little gasket here. Very important little O-ring. And I was told to grease the hell out of it. Alright, so I'm gonna wipe this surface. Again, I don't have any gunk today, anything, no solvent or anything. If I had that, I would be cleaning this off way better. But I don't, so I'm just gonna do that. Okay, so we got the oil filter on, and one last snug of the plug. Oops. Nice. Okay, so now all we gotta do is add oil. By now, if you're lucky, your pipes have cooled off. And this one does say, I think it says to check on the jiffy stand, so of course it's not going to be a good indicator, but just for future reference. Hopefully, you know, it's not where it can leak is through the around the oil filter not being seated down correctly, or the drain plug not being seated incorrectly because of that gasket in there. So those are things that, you know, I tighten it pretty good. You don't want to over tighten the oil filter, but you got to get it tight enough that it's not going to vibrate loose. Okay, so obviously I've made a pretty good mess of things. I've tried real hard not to get oil on my pipes. I do try to not do that, but I have gotten oil on the case and certainly on the case in front where the filter is. So you're going to have some smoking from that, some burning of that oil between here and driving to the car wash. But that's always my first stop. It also, washing the vehicle will allow you to see better if something is leaking or not seated in right. So earlier, when I was draining the bike, I kicked the engine over a few times to kind of push any oil through that was perhaps in the case or the pump. I'm going to do that again because if you remember, I didn't put oil inside the filter when I put the filter on, so I want to push some oil from the oil case to the filter and into the engine and all. So I'm going to actually give it just some push. Stop. Okay, so that should push oil through a little bit.
Like there's always been, I've never been so alone, and I've never been so alive. Visions of you on a motorcycle drive by, the cigarette ash flies in your eyes.